Hey guys, it's time for part 3 of Day 9 Daily number 469, where we're watching Fanatic ToD do some awesomeness versus Star Tails Parting. We saw cool builds from the player as openings from part 1 and 2 and talked about the implications of it a little bit. And then talked about this funky period where both of us seem to just have double robo up. Neither has the Colossus advantage, so neither of us is going to be getting an easy game-ending push by just having way more Colossi in that mid-game battle. And now we want to step into the phase where we're aware that, wow, we have to make sure our gateway count ramps up, because when these battles exchange, we can only replenish our Colossi so quickly. So we're either going to have to be playing very conservatively with our Colossi, or ready to replenish Zealot Archon and get really aggressive. Which is how the late game tends to start being quite a bit more fragile and quite a bit more aggressive. Obviously, getting 2 forges up is really important. Kind of goes without saying. But ToD is going to make sure he has his money mix of motherships, trapping as many off units as he can. And there's a couple of periods in here where we're going to see that ToD has a seemingly better army and could go win at any point in time, but you have to be careful because you don't know where your opponent's mothership is in these late game battles. So here are these really awesome micro battles where honestly you don't really need that many. Why is my mouse not... Oh yeah, I guess I can't... Can you not select Zealots when they're mid-charge? I can't select the Zealot. Wow, that's kind of a weird bug. In these micro battles, not over-microing I think is hard to do. ToD moves very, very small chunks of his army back, largely just the Colossus, to make sure his Colossus pull back just a little bit. If things are stacked, it's obviously a big threat in these battles. We're starting to see the real benefit of extra Archons in the army. They absorb a lot of damage and allow us to step into the fray. But thanks to the fact that Parting does have 15 gateways, he can be much more fierce in these battles. What will almost always turn the tide in these battles is who has the next highest gateway count. Or who has the highest gateway count. Obviously, both of them did some crazy micro and kept the Colossus alive. That really is the most important part of the army. I mean, a lot because of the damage dealing component, but also because it's just so hard to replenish. It must be kept alive. So ToD does have his very nice earlier expansion up. And nothing at all wrong with one High Templar sitting around ready to feed back a mothership. Exactly as we see out of ToD. So, alright, great. In most circumstances, we like to wait until we're maxed. But remember, we're in the late game, where suddenly the gateway and our ability to replenish rapidly is going to be very, very important. So we have 3 or so Archons up, and we have this forward pylon done. Perfectly reasonable to attack somewhere, and attacking the closest place, I think, is going to be on average way better in every way. Oh god, I just want that feedback to land so badly. Getting in a vortex just hurts in this matchup, and there's the feedback. Should happen pretty frequently. Armies are more important than bases in many, many circumstances. So there's a couple of oddities that I want to note right off the bat, where in these Colossus battles, you obviously want your Colossi to kill... Let me see here. You obviously want your Colossus count to be higher, so you win these final battles. And a lot of times what causes this to happen is that you chew through his front line of units, and then your Colossi can step up and just target fire his while the rest of your ground army ends up eating him alive. In other words, so from that we can conclude that at the start of a battle, leading with the Colossus with the intent of pulling them back is a very nice basic micro technique. So I'm going to back up for a second. And we're going to speed up right before the battle. Okay, cool. If we wanted to engage here, classic logic would indicate that we should hit 1A. But pretty simple. Micro technique from ToD. I have all the colossi selected. We're going to see all the ground units juke forward, and then he's going to pull these back, and then he's going to lead up with his colossi a little bit. You see how he led with him just a little bit to make sure he could get this first set of hits off? Leading just a little bit is super important. And it's really tempting right now to run up and try to kill his colossi, but that's a very fast way to lose all of your colossus production. The warp-in rounds of the ground units are way, way, way the more important. But yeah, that nice little technique. Like if there's an army here, I would take my colossus and just kind of and then pull back. Just lead a little bit at the start of these armies, assuming there's something poking out here. Yeah, you see how leading just a little bit. Yeah, oh, yeah, I mean, killing a shit ton of probes is really good. I would re-show that, but we're running a little low on time, and I do have an AMA right after this. Woo! You should stay for the AMA. But leading a little bit, and I like the fact that what ToD's doing is he's trying to catch this right at this cliff, and it causes these ground units to funnel just a smidge. That's good for picking them off, but kind of engaging has the same sort of oppositely reverse effect. And if we just look at the units lost, we're seeing that ToD's starting to get a little bit ahead. And I guess I'd say that if you're both going for these mass Colossus armies, trying to do too much harass up here or counter-harass down there can really backfire. Keeping your army in a packed cluster is going to be way better for the overall outcome of the game. Parting's being really super sick, not losing any Colossus and still kind of hanging at the front. See that little juke forward, just leading a little bit, and see this is a nice play to pick off a good amount of the Zealots while still pulling back with everything. And actually, I do want to go back and show that because I feel like these Colossus versus Colossus battles seem really arbitrary. But look at the food, 141 to 179. So just pulling back, and you have to wait like half a second for it to actually deal damage. A lot of times when you do jukes like what ToD just did there, it won't actually do damage. Like let me select the Zealots. You see how they pretty much took damage. Yeah, ToD. Yeah, right there. You see that last hit where nothing actually took any damage? Let's take one fast look at that. Right here. It's this shot right here. Going. See how nothing took damage there? That is the danger of microing a little bit too fast. But you saw it start at 171 to 141. And now we have Parting down another 15 food, and ToD's up at the same food, and they've both been macroing the whole time. Also in these Colossus micro battles, just pulling some of the Colossi around the edges is another way to avoid over-microing the Colossus and trying to go a little too crazy with them. But, you know, I think at this point in time, this is another one of these key moments where it's like I don't really know where his mothership is. And if you hit one bad vortex, it's really easy to just be like, oh, derp. He should just totally go for it. Oh my god, it's so cool. I'm totally going to win this battle. It's going to be no problem. And you just go for it. But just being a little bit careful, you just don't know what angle he's going to come from. And his feedbacks have been really sick all game long. So ToD is doing, I think the most reasonable thing you can do in this spot is to get the Dark Templar up and just poke for expansions. And at this point, again, no one's really making any broad mistakes. So we're just getting more Archons, getting a good amount of Zealots. Photon Cannon in mid, we got the Observer Speed, just slowly getting more upgrades. Shield upgrades, definitely very good. As ToD is now at 313, going for 323 upgrades. But again, we're in kind of this awkward spot where we don't really want our army to walk away and go hit his army. Whoa, that was the totally wrong phrase. We don't want our army to break into two pieces and one goes and hits this place, because we really run the risk of losing a bunch of our colossi in one of these split engagements. I think Party's doing another sort of interesting technique in this matchup, which is you kind of halt the zealot production and you just invest more in archons, so you might get to max a little bit slower, but you will have a better maxed composition, and if he decides to move out and attack you, you just reflood with all the zealots you didn't make because you have a gateway advantage. But this is one of the sweetest moves I've seen ever. Moving the whole army down to clear a path, and then upon noticing that it's free, just letting the zealots go kill it. We don't really need that many zealots in our late game composition, and this distracted the whole army for ToD and killed a ton of probes. In the unit station, look at that, down to 32. ToD is doing another interesting answer, which is to just start building cannons with his extra cash to be able to harass this base. Both of them, I think, are interesting micro moves, because I think everyone's starting to see more and more, okay, I'm seeing how to control the flow of these battles, and I'm seeing I want less zealots and I want more archons in my final mixture, but this moment I was just kind of like, oh, ToD, because I was worried he was going to like engage and leave half his archons behind, but this is totally sweet. This counterattack here by parting was 2, totally sweet. But ToD, thanks to the fact that he has just gotten a whole bunch more archons, is really carefully moving forward. The mothership's kind of floating at the back nicely because, you know, it's a lot slower. But always trying to avoid one of those big feedbacks, the big danger. Also, ToD does this really cool thing where he just morphs in stalkers up here. It's still really, I guess I don't want to call it passive, but really slow at this phase of the game. But it's still kind of the same basic idea. Both players are attacking whatever's closest and most convenient to push at. And neither player really wants to get too over-aggressive in the center, just due to this mothership having such just a powerful game-shifting impact. I just love this little back base harassment thing that we see going on again and again. And in the army supply tab, ToD is winning by a big margin. And if you do a move like this, this is another way of being like, you know what? I hope that I have a better army than he does. Because that is like the only hope you have at this point, if you're moving all the way up here. Because the instant you move up here, you sack control the center. Parting obviously going to go for the super potent counterattack and doing this really slick little mineral-only move. Oh, I just think that's so cool. ToD kills the nearest thing closest to him. But I think it's at a moment like right now when we really see the brilliance of ToD's simple move here, where, okay, so ToD says, I have a bigger army. Look at the way that the expansions look on the map. Think of where ToD is, think of where our opponent's expansions that we want to hit are. There's one here, and there's one here, and where we want fresher expansions to be. For instance, we could plant one here. Hell, we could plant, we could have planted here, which we did. We could plant another expansion up here. But we see ToD scooting farther up to the right. It's very easy to just look at the minimap and say, oh, well, it's obvious. This is the closest place that's far away from him, and this is the next closest place that's far away from him. Okay, cool, but with this play from ToD, if he moves up here and encounters his opponent's army, the assumption is, I have a bigger army and I will win that fight. So by moving up to this base and having expansions up at the top side, he can step into the battle knowing he'll lose his main and he will be up 2 bases to no bases. That Parting cannot possibly get out of this thing alive. So, okay, here's the first battle. We moved up here. Alright, cool, he's counterattacking down at this bottom side. So we very naturally will go to the next expansion. And then all we have to do is cut as far right as quickly as we can. And great, now parting is locked down to 0 expansions. It's just a really nice, simple move from ToD that, you know, it's one of those things that will certainly get your heart pounding in the game where you move up to the top left. But because we're expanding in a place to where our retreat path is behind, or let me say that again. We place our expansions in such a way that when we go for an attack and then retreat, our expansions are still behind the rest of our army. It's kind of weird because we don't really always want to go for a base trade. It's kind of unusual to be like, oh yeah, this is just my standard 36-minute base trade build. But after all those little tiny exchanges and ToD slowly inching together a nicer army mix, careful never to lose his Colossus, otherwise it goes into a hyper-aggressive mid and late game. Oh no, that sucks so much. Oh my god. Okay, let me just back up for a moment. Remember all those times throughout the game where I was saying, it looks like ToD can attack right now, but he just doesn't know where his opponent's mothership is, and he doesn't know if a mothership will come out of nowhere. This is the moment. This is the moment. This is where you go, oh my god, did I just lose a game I had won? This is one of the big issues that happens in late game PvP aggression, especially if your opponent is really good about landing those excellent feedbacks here. So let's look at this battle. We see the army of Colossi from ToD just get freaking obliterated. This was such a sick move from parting. It just completely changed the tide of this game. Armies always more important than bases when it comes down to the in-the-moment decision-making. But Colossi, without gateway units underneath to support them, die very quickly to gateway units underneath them. And again, rebuilding gateway units is always going to be more effective in these small numbers. So ToD rebuilds a nice set of gateway units, gets his units into position, and goes for a little bit of final game-winning damage to get the GG. Let me just again emphasize the big lesson we all want to learn. When we have an army of death, it doesn't matter if we don't know where our opponent's mothership is. Alright. Really easy. The one place of no vision. We see ToD at all these different angles. Moving down here. We see some cloaking. We see that there's probably a mothership here. All the mineral units go right here. All the units that work well with the vortex in the back. A really slick trap. Just so good. See, we kind of know where the mothership is. We see it right there. So ToD starts to get into position. We see some cloaking, uncloaking. I think there's nothing wrong with being in Parting's position. ToD's position, just sort of hanging out up here and warping in, or maybe sacking a Zealot and warping in one High Templar, because when that happens... I was even talking to ToD right before the daily, and he was just like, oh, when that happened, I just like flipped out to everyone in my Skype chat. Look at this. Okay, it's 25k to 31k. I just want to look at how fast ToD loses that army. Oh my god, he's lost 3k immediately. Oh, ToD. Oh my god, that's just so painful. Wow, those evened up real fast. But, in the end, having the extra bases prevails. Yeah, more bases, especially in this matchup. Yeah. Especially when he's like, go to Disneyland. Sends him to Disneyland, comes back. And the good game. Loved it. Now, ordinarily, I would take a whole bunch of questions, but what I will do is just stop the daily, because right after this is going to be an Ask Me Anything as pre-prep and pump up for the Collegiate Star League that I will be casting Friday, Saturday, Sunday out in Florida. I'm also getting on a plane tomorrow, so this is in fact the only daily of the week, but don't worry because I will be back bright and early next week to do a full week's worth of dailies, from what I understand. From my understanding with everything. So, hope to see you here for the AMA, and if not, I'll see you in the archives. Thanks for watching. Gonna play some music in the interlude, and then I'll be back.